Welcome back into the studio, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Garrett Neal, and I am here to host once again the box office breakdown right here, live on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And today we're going to look back, of course, at this past week's weekend at the cinematic box office. Highlights of today's show, we got Shazam leading the way at the box office this weekend, and looking forward to next week, Hellboy. It's looking to light up that box office. And, of course, we have the countdown to Endgame coming up. It's right around the corner. It's less than a month away. And that is going to be major news in the box office. But without further ado, let's jump right into this past weekend's top 5, starting with, of course, as alluded to, Shazam. Gotta Shazam! It's got the exclamation point on it, so you gotta Shazam! Okay. It was kind of expected that this was going to be the number one. Would have been quite the surprise if it wasn't. Brought in $53.5 million in just over 4,200 theaters. Doing well. Got great reviews. I saw it this weekend. I very much enjoyed it. 91% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 90% audience approval, and a 7.8 on IMDb. So very positive across the board there. It opened along the lines of Ant-Man, which opened to 57.2. So it was a little lower than Ant-Man, but around there. And if it has the same type multiplier, has the same kind of sustainability that Ant-Man did back in the day, then it could get around 160 million or so in the bank before Endgame hits. But also opened up pretty much day and date everywhere overseas, opened up in 79 markets internationally, led the way easily in the international box office as well with 102 million in all those, led, of course, by China. Had, I think, 30 million or so about in its China opening, and then a bunch of other ones thrown in there. So, good reviews for Shazam, so that should definitely help it going forward and achieving that 160 million or so domestically, and then should continue to do very well internationally as well. Has a reported production budget of about $100 million, which is on the lower end, for a lot of these superhero films, really. It's obvious that's obviously not cheap, but, you look at what a lot of these more recent Marvel films are. It's usually 200 million is a good ballpark, and Endgame is probably even more than that. Well, so 100 million is on the lower end, and it's definitely. It's already got a global gross of 150 or so million, and it should easily eclipse 200 million and do very well. Very exciting. I'm glad it was very fun. Moving on to number 2, and a big shift as far as the genre of the film, the tone of the film. Now we got Pet Sematary, also in its opening weekend. That one opened in a little over 3,500 theaters and opened to 24.5 million, which is just about in line with expectations. As a horror film, it is, of course, going to be smaller budgeted. It has a 20 million reported production budget. So, made that up. It's definitely going to make money with horror films. It's generally a question of how much money is it going to make, rather than is it going to make money, just because they're generally pretty cheap to make. This one, not really an exception in that department, though it might have some more concerns going forward as far as what kind of legs it has. Because Shazam got those great reviews, so people are going to want to go see it again. They're going to tell their friends. Their friends are going to want to go see it. People who might not see every superhero movie, you're going to be like, oh, I'll check out Shazam. I heard it was good. Pet Sematary, 59% critic approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 44 audience approval, 6.3 on IMDb. So, not terrible, by any means, but definitely not good. And, I don't know how many people are coming out of this film, recommending it to their friends or wanting to go back. I think especially it made a lot of big changes from the book and from the previous film that angered some of the hardcore Stephen King or Pet Sematary fans. But some of the people that went into it fresh might have liked it. Been the audience that liked it a little more. I don't know. I did not see this one. I watched a lot of in-depth reviews on it, though, so that's kind of where I'm getting that information from. So it'll be interesting to see how it legs out. It did open similar to the Evil Dead remake in 2013, which also like pretty similar genre-wise. That one opened up to $25.7 million. And that one ended up getting around $55 million. If you look at other, recent horror films that kind of opened up similar numbers, between 55 and 60 million is what it looks like Pet Sematary will get, which is pretty solid, I think. Pretty solid, but not amazing. Something that we might want to be a little bit more concerned about, though, is the number 3 spot. Dumbo took a big drop in its second week, dropping over 60%, going from week 1 to week 2, brought in just $18.2 million this week in over 4,200 theaters. With a $170 million reported production budget, that is tough stuff. Its domestic total now is at $76.2 million. Its total worldwide gross is at $215 million. So, again, kind of the basic kind of, you never know what the marketing budget and all that stuff is, but, 170 times 2 is generally what you do. So you got $340 million is what you want to get. That might be a tough ask of Dumbo, and that's even just to break even. And you don't always bring back all the money that you get on top of breaking even too. So probably maybe not what Disney wanted to do with Dumbo. I mean, especially again with Endgame coming out in about 3 weeks. That's going to cut off. It's going to cut off everything, pretty much, is what we're assuming, and so that's not going to help Dumbo at all. I mean, granted, the money's still going in the same place because it's all Disney, but specifically looking at that, they probably wanted it to do a little bit better. Dumbo, I think it's tough because it's one of those movies I think a lot of people have heard of and they might remember it fondly, but I don't think there's a ton of people who are like, oh yeah, dude, Dumbo's my favorite Disney animated film. Obviously there are those people, but it certainly doesn't have the brand or the following that Beauty and the Beast, which did bonkers at the box office, or Lion King or Aladdin coming out later this year. Dumbo is one of the films I think has been kept alive in memory very well, but I don't know that there's a lot of really die-hard Dumbo fans out there, and I think that's kind of showing. And also I think speaks to the kind of mediocre reviews that the film has been getting. I thought this was very boring film, personally. I'm also not a huge fan of the original either, but I did like it more than the remake. So it'll be interesting to see how, it really, honestly, for the remakes, it doesn't really seem like the quality has been that much of a factor, because a lot of people didn't really like Beauty and the Beast, but that still made a ton of money. And it's like Lion King, it's still probably going to make a ton of money, even if it's not amazing. I mean, I could go on for a long time about Disney live-action remakes, and I'm going to try not to. But, I think if they want to make live-action remakes, they should take films that were not already classics, because if you remake a classic, you're far more likely to just mess it up rather than make it any better, or even be able to make it as good as it was. Where you should take, Disney's got a lot of movies that were kind of middle of the road. They've got a lot of movies that were great ideas, maybe not executed well. Maybe take some of those and try and take those great ideas and execute them better than they were the first time. So, that's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on to number 4, we got Us in its third week. It also took a solid drop, dropping 58.5%. Probably very likely to Pet Sematary, hitting kind of the same audience there. But Us has already made bank. It also had that $20 million budget. Its domestic gross is $152 million. It brought in $13.7 million this week. So it's doing just fine. I really enjoyed Us. Nice to see it doing well. Jordan Peele doing great. I haven't seen that Twilight Zone first episode yet, but glad he's doing well. Then, rounding out the top 5, in its week 5 is Captain Marvel. Brought in another $12.4 million this week. Its domestic gross is $373.8 million. And, of course, the big thing this week was that Captain Marvel worldwide gross crossed the $1 billion mark. $1 billion mark. So big milestone for Captain Marvel there. It's very nice to see that one doing well. It's a pretty solid movie. And before we take a break, we of course got to look at the per theater average winner of this week, which is going to be High Life. It's an A24 film, was in 4 theaters with an average of $24,835 per theater. It's a movie starring Robert Pattinson about a father and his daughter struggling to survive in deep space where they live in isolation. Looks like this one's been well received by critics. Fans maybe not as much, which is, I mean, it's tough to say. It was only in 4 theaters, so I don't know. It's probably not getting a super wide perspective on it, but it's got an 80 on Metascore, but a 6.7 on IMDb. It has an 89% on 73 reviews for the critic approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 63% on 75 ratings for the audience approval score. So a little bit of a differentiate there, but of a differential, excuse me. But it looks like overall supposed to be a pretty solid movie, if maybe not amazing. Probably a little slow burner. You know, you tend to see those get a little bit higher ratings on the critics' side, but that's going to do it for this past week. And so we're going to take a quick break, and we got three kind of big new movies coming out next week, and we'll take a look at what the projections are saying for those right after this break. So stick around for that. I'm Garrett Neal as the Box Office Breakdown, and you're listening to it live right here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. All right, welcome back to the studio for the second half of the show. I'm Garrett Neal. This is still the Box Office Breakdown right here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Let's take a look at what is coming out next week. The big one is going to be the new Hellboy movie. Not really sure what to think about this one, if I'm being honest. The first trailer was not a huge fan. Liked the second one a little bit more, but still kind of, you know, I just don't know. I really like the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy films. So, you know, I think there's definitely a lot of cool places to go with this property. Not really sure what's going to happen, but it is looking to be the highest grossing new film of this weekend. It's being projected around $17 million to open up for this weekend. So it'll probably be, you know, third highest grossing next week. You know, below Shazam, but probably above. Yeah, it'll probably be number 2, below Shazam, but above Pet Sematary and certainly everything else. And it, you know, it'll definitely very interested to see what the reviews say on that one. We haven't seen. There's no reviews out yet. I don't think I've seen any first reactions or anything. So it'll be interesting to see if we start getting those out during the week. You know, generally you think that if a studio is confident in the film, they'll release some of the reviews early. But that's, you know, there are plenty of films that have the reviews released when the film comes out that are perfectly fine films. So you never know. Then the next one is going to be Little, which is a comedy, workplace comedy, starring Regina Hall, Issa Rae. This one, not really my thing, but should do decently well. It's projected around 15 million this week. Also, no reviews out for this one. Little synopsis: a woman is transformed into her younger self at a point in her life when the pressure of adulthood becomes too much to bear. Wow, that's an interesting synopsis. From the trailers, it's like there's this woman who's like an assistant at some workplace, who knows, and they don't like their boss because their boss is really bossy all the time. And then the boss gets cursed and comes into work the next day as like a 12-year-old girl, and now the assistant has to like help her through stuff. You know, it's it could be fun. Should have a decent little opening weekend. It'll again be interesting to see what the reviews look like for that. I'm probably not going to see that one this weekend. I'm probably going to go see Hellboy, but I also might go see Missing Link, which is the new one from Leica Animation Studios, who are behind Coraline, Paranorman. Most recently, I think it was Kubo and the Two Strings, which I really, really like all of those films. One thing that they all had that this one doesn't seem like it's going to is kind of a more darker feel to it. I mean, Coraline definitely, and Paranorman definitely. Kubo and the Two Strings wasn't necessarily as dark as those, but definitely had some moments, especially like the two twin sisters. If you've seen the movie, like, they were creepy, dude. Super, super creepy. This one seems like it's going to be a lot more lighthearted, and it kind of seems like Leica was trying to do like an Aardman-style film, which, I mean, it's fine. Aardman makes some really fun movies, but I like seeing that kind of darker stuff sometimes, and that's why I really, really like Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings especially, and I do like Paranorman too. I just think I like the other ones a little more. But anyway, Missing Link has still gotten some solid reviews. Not too many ratings, but does have an 89% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That is with just 38 reviews, so, you know, who knows how to take that. You know, early reviews are always, I think, generally going to skew a little more positive, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think, you know, I trust they can at least make a solid film. I honestly have been kind of put off by the trailers, but I do want to see what they're doing with it, even if it's a little bit of a breakaway from their traditional stuff. And that one is looking to open at about 11 million. So 17 million for Hellboy, 15 million for Little, and 11 million for Missing Link are going to be the new films coming out next weekend. And we're just 29 days. No. We're almost at Endgame, and that's projected still to make like 265 million or something nuts like that at the box office opening weekend. I have my tickets. There was a whole mess last week and trying to get the tickets, and AMC went down, which stunk because then I ended up having to get my tickets from Regal, and I had to pay for them because I have AMC A-List, and usually I would just reserve through that, but I didn't want to wait for AMC to get their site back up because I was worried it would come back up and none of the tickets I wanted would be available anymore. So I just paid for them at Regal, and you know, now I'm going to see it in Regal, and it's not going to be in IMAX like I wanted, but at least it's going to be in 3D. That's going to be exciting. This weekend, I'm probably going to see Hellboy and maybe Missing Link if I have time, but Hellboy, I think, is my priority this weekend, and that's about gonna wrap it up for this week. Got the projections for Box Office Pro, got the numbers for this week from Box Office Mojo. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys go see some fun movies this weekend, or maybe at the theater, maybe at home. Maybe you missed something, you go back to see something that's been out a few weeks. Maybe you'll go see one of the new movies. Who knows? But enjoy your time this week. I'll be back next Monday Hopefully the weather stays nice for a little bit longer, but probably won't happen. But enjoy it while it lasts. Enjoy your week. Come back same time next Monday. We'll talk all about how those films did, preview what's coming out the next week. I'm Garrett Neal. This has been your box office breakdown right here on Rated Paul, Chicago's College Connection. And enjoy the rest of your Mondays.